Kira Velthani stood on the observation deck of the SciFiPrime orbital station and watched her world die. The star that had given life to her people for millions of years now burned with angry red light that made the sky look like blood. She pressed her blue-scaled hand against the cool metal wall and felt the vibrations from the planet below. Even from space, she could feel the earthquakes that shook every continent every few hours now. The cities were failing one by one. New Thesara had been evacuated 3 days ago when the ground started cracking open and swallowing entire districts. Port Villani was next on the list, but they had nowhere to move the people. The refugee camps were already full beyond capacity, and food was running low. Every day brought new reports of systems failing and people dying from the increasing heat and radiation. Kira walked quickly to the communications center where dozens of her people worked at control panels that flickered with data from across their solar system. The main screen showed the star's surface activity, and the readings made her stomach feel sick. Solar flares were getting bigger and more frequent. The magnetic field that protected their world was breaking down under the constant bombardment of deadly particles. Commander Talos Brightscale of the Zephyrite Defense Fleet appeared on the communications screen. His crystalline features reflected the emergency lights as he spoke in his musical voice that always sounded sad. Ambassador Velthani, we have received your latest reports. I wish we had better news to share with you. Kira straightened her diplomatic robes and tried to keep her voice steady. Commander, what is the latest estimate for evacuation support from the Coalition? Talos's crystal body dimmed slightly, which was how his people showed distress. Our fastest ships could reach your system in 47 standard days. Even then, we could only transport perhaps 50,000 of your people per trip. The mathematics are not favorable, I am afraid. The numbers hit Kira like a physical blow. 50,000 people when they needed to save over 2 billion. Even if every coalition ship worked without stopping, it would take hundreds of trips, and they simply did not have that much time. The star was becoming more unstable every day, and their scientists predicted complete systemic failure within 60 days at most. What about the Nautilin Deep Fleet? She asked desperately. Surely their bioships could carry more passengers. Talos consulted data that flowed across his transparent skin like moving tattoos. Admiral Reef Walker sends his regrets. Their vessels are not designed for atmospheric entry, and they lack the shuttle capacity for large-scale evacuation. They could perhaps manage 10,000 per ship, but the journey to their nearest colony world would take 93 days. Kira felt her hope crashing down around her like the buildings in the earthquake zones. She had spent weeks negotiating with every member species of the Galactic Coalition. The responses were always the same. Everyone was sorry, but no one had the resources or the time to mount a rescue operation on the scale needed to save her people. The Hive Collective had been the most honest about their limitations. Queen Mind Zarathus had explained that their ships were built for war, not rescue, and their biology made it impossible for them to share living space with other species for extended periods. The insectoid warriors were brave in battle, but their ships had no room for refugees. Other smaller species had offered what they could, but it amounted to maybe another 100,000 people saved if everything went perfectly. Kira appreciated their efforts, but the cruel mathematics remained unchanged. Out of 2.3 billion Villani, perhaps 200,000 might escape if they were very lucky. She dismissed Talos with thanks and walked to the planetary monitoring station where her people tracked the growing disaster below. Duty Officer Mira Velsan looked up from her instruments with tired eyes that had seen too much suffering in recent weeks. The radiation levels in the northern continent have increased by another 12%, Mira reported quietly. We had to evacuate the last 3 cities there. The people are being moved to the southern refugee centers, but we are running out of space and supplies. Kira studied the global map that showed safe zones shrinking by the day, while red danger areas spread like a disease across the continents. Soon there would be nowhere left that could support life. The evacuation ships would arrive to find only empty cities and bones bleached white by deadly radiation. The communication board chimed with an incoming message, and Kira's heart jumped, hoping for good news. Instead, it was Dr. Kelvin Velmora, the chief scientist monitoring their dying star. His usually calm expression was replaced by barely controlled panic. Ambassador, the stellar activity has increased beyond our worst projections. We are detecting massive instabilities in the star's core. I fear we may have less time than we originally calculated." "How much less time?" Kira asked, though she dreaded the answer. Dr. Velmora checked his readings twice before responding. "If current trends continue, we estimate 42 days before catastrophic stellar collapse. The solar system will become uninhabitable within 40 days. I am sorry to be the bearer of such terrible news." 40 days. Not the 60 they had been planning for. Kira felt the weight of 2.3 billion lives pressing down on her shoulders like a mountain. Even if every coalition ship started moving right now, they could not reach the SciFiPrime in time to save anyone. The fastest vessels needed 47 days just to arrive. She authorized Dr. Velmora to send updated data to all coalition members and walked slowly back to the communications center. Perhaps someone somewhere had resources they had not mentioned. Perhaps there was some technology or some ship design that could move faster than anything currently known to galactic science. The duty communications officer was a young Villani named Keeper Veltos who had worked tirelessly to coordinate rescue efforts. He looked up as Kira approached, and she could see the same desperate hope in his eyes that she felt in her heart. "Keeper, have we received any new responses to our distress signals?" she asked. Veltos consulted his screens and shook his head sadly. "Nothing from the coalition member's ambassador. However, our long-range sensors continue to broadcast the emergency signal in all directions. There is always the possibility that someone we have not contacted might receive the transmission." Kira nodded and stared out at the stars visible through the observation windows. Somewhere out there in the vast darkness between galaxies, the distress signal from SciFiPrime was traveling at the speed of light, carrying the desperate plea of a dying world. She knew the chances were almost zero that anyone unknown to the coalition would hear it or be able to help even if they did. But almost zero was still better than nothing at all. As long as that signal traveled through space, there remained the tiniest fragment of hope that someone somewhere might have the power to save her people. Kira ordered the communications array to boost the signal strength and broadcast on every frequency known to galactic science. The message was simple and heartbreaking. A world was dying and 2.3 billion people needed help. Anyone who received this signal and had the ability to assist was begged to respond immediately. Time was running out and hope was fading, but the Villani refused to give up until the very last moment. The signal raced outward through space, carrying the desperate prayer of an entire species into the unknown darkness between the stars. 3 weeks had passed since the last desperate transmission was sent into the void of space. Kira Velthani had not slept properly in days as she watched her world continue its slow death spiral toward extinction. The southern continent was now completely uninhabitable, and the massive refugee camps were overcrowded beyond any reasonable capacity. People were dying from radiation sickness faster than their medical facilities could treat them. The orbital monitoring station, where she spent most of her time, had become a tomb-like place where her people tracked the approach of their own doom with scientific precision. Every day brought worse news. Every day the safe zones grew smaller and the death toll grew larger. The coalition ships were still weeks away, and even when they arrived, they could only save a tiny fraction of the population. Sensor operator Dex Velkari was monitoring the edge of their solar system when his instruments began detecting something that made no sense, according to everything he knew about physics and space travel. He stared at his readings for several minutes, thinking his equipment must be malfunctioning before calling for his supervisor. "Officer Velson, you need to see this immediately," he said with a voice that trembled slightly. "I am detecting massive gravitational distortions at the system boundary, but the patterns are unlike anything in our databases." Mira Velson hurried over to Dex's station and studied the data streaming across his monitors. The readings showed gravitational waves that seemed to be moving in impossible ways, as if space itself was being twisted and folded by some unknown force. She had never seen anything like it in 20 years of monitoring space traffic. "Are you certain the sensors are calibrated correctly?" she asked, while running her own diagnostic checks on the equipment. Dex nodded emphatically. "I have run full diagnostics 3 times. The equipment is functioning perfectly. Something is approaching our system, and it is using technology that operates on principles we do not understand." Mira immediately activated the emergency alert. system that would notify Ambassador Velthani and the Planetary Defense Command of the unusual readings. Within minutes, Kira was standing behind them, studying the sensor data with growing amazement and fear. Whatever was approaching was massive beyond anything in Coalition records. The gravitational signatures suggested objects the size of small moons, but they were moving with precision and coordination that indicated intelligent control. The energy readings were off the scale of their instruments, as if the approaching vessels were powered by captured stars. Most disturbing of all, they were moving faster than any known form of space travel should allow. How long until they reach our system? Kira asked while trying to keep the fear out of her voice. Dex performed rapid calculations on his computer. At current speed, approximately 6 hours, Ambassador. But these readings suggest they are still accelerating, which should be impossible given their apparent mass. 6 hours. Kira felt her heart racing as she realized their dying world was about to receive visitors with technology that made Coalition science look primitive. She had no idea if these unknown beings were coming to help or to take advantage of a world too weak to defend itself. Either way, the arrival of such advanced aliens would change everything. She ordered all communication arrays to focus on the approaching fleet and attempt to establish contact. The first priority was to determine if these mysterious visitors represented help or a new threat to add to their already desperate situation. The defensive satellites around SciFiPrime were powered up, though everyone knew they would be useless against technology this advanced. 4 hours later, the first ships began, appearing on visual sensors, and the sight took everyone's breath away. The vessels were sleek and angular with smooth curves that seemed to flow like liquid metal. They were indeed the size of small moons, but they moved through space with the grace and precision of much smaller craft. Energy patterns played along, their hulls like aurora displays of impossible beauty. The lead ship was approaching the orbital station where Kira waited with her senior staff. She had never seen anything so magnificent and terrifying at the same time. The vessel dwarfed their largest space platforms, but somehow gave the impression of being perfectly controlled and peaceful, rather than threatening. Communication Officer. Veltos was working frantically at his station trying to establish contact with the approaching fleet. Standard Coalition frequencies produced no response, but his instruments were detecting organized signal patterns coming from the lead ship. The signals were complex and clearly artificial, but unlike anything in their communication protocols. Suddenly, the main screen flickered to life and displayed the image of a being that looked remarkably similar to the Vellani, but with several obvious differences. The alien had smooth skin without scales and hair that grew from the top of its head in long, dark strands. Its eyes were smaller than Vellani eyes, but showed clear intelligence and what appeared to be concern. "This is Captain Yuna Park, of the Human Vessel Soul's Vengeance," the alien said through translation systems that somehow managed to convert her words into perfect Vellani language. "We received your distress call and came as quickly as possible. We are here to help your people." The communication center fell silent as everyone stared at the screen in shock. Humans. The name meant nothing to any of them. No such species existed in Coalition databases. Yet here was an entire fleet of ships, using technology that seemed impossibly advanced, claiming they had come to rescue the dying world of SciFiPrime. Kira found her voice and stepped forward to address the human captain. "I am Ambassador Kira Velthani, representing the Vellani people and the Galactic Coalition. We are grateful for your response, but I must ask who you are and where you come from. We have no record of your species in our databases." Captain Park's expression showed what might have been surprise, though it was difficult to read alien facial features. "You are members of what you call the Galactic Coalition. We are aware of your organization, though we have not made formal contact. Until now. We come from regions of space you have not yet explored. The important thing right now is saving your people from the stellar collapse." Another figure appeared on the screen beside Captain Park. This one wore different clothing with more decorative elements and carried himself with the bearing of high military command. When he spoke, his voice carried absolute authority tempered with genuine compassion. "I am Admiral Jinho Kim, commanding the evacuation fleet," he said while studying data that appeared on screens around him. "Our sensors show your star will undergo catastrophic failure in approximately 37 days. We have sufficient capacity to evacuate your entire population to safe worlds where they can build new lives." Kira felt her legs go weak as the UEE meaning of his words sank in. Sufficient capacity to evacuate everyone. The Coalition's most optimistic estimates had suggested they might save 200,000 people with massive effort and perfect timing. These unknown humans were claiming they could save all 2.3 billion Villani. Admiral Kim, I appreciate your offer, but our population numbers over 2 billion individuals, she said carefully. The Coalition's largest evacuation fleet estimates it would require hundreds of trips over many years to relocate so many people. Admiral Kim consulted with other humans visible on the screen before responding. Ambassador, we have 47 ARC ships in this fleet. Each vessel can comfortably accommodate 60 million passengers for extended interstellar journeys. We also have engineering ships capable of preparing new colony worlds in nearby systems while the evacuation proceeds. The numbers were staggering, beyond belief. Ships that could carry 60 million people each, engineering vessels that could prepare entire worlds for colonization, technology that made Coalition science look like primitive tools used by children playing at civilization. Lieutenant. Commander Minji Lee appeared on screen next to the Admiral and addressed Kira directly. Ambassador, we have already begun deploying orbital evacuation platforms around your planet. Our shuttlecraft will begin transport operations within 12 hours. We recommend prioritizing evacuation from the most radiation-affected areas first. Kira looked out through the observation windows and could see the human fleet spreading throughout their solar system with mechanical precision. Massive ships were taking positions around SciFiPrime, while smaller vessels established what appeared to be transport corridors using technology that bent space itself. Construction platforms were already building evacuation stations that dwarfed anything the Villani had ever constructed. How is this possible? She whispered more to herself than to the humans on the screen. Captain Park seemed to hear her anyway and replied with gentle understanding. Ambassador, your people are not alone in the galaxy. There are civilizations with resources and capabilities beyond what your coalition has encountered. Today, you learn that the universe is far larger and more wonderful than you imagined. Tomorrow, your people will be safe. The first human shuttlecraft were already descending through the atmosphere toward the overcrowded refugee camps on the southern continent. Kira watched through the sensor feeds as vessels the size of city blocks landed with impossible gentleness and began deploying technology that created stable environmental fields around entire population centers. The first full day of human evacuation operations changed everything Kira thought she knew about what was possible in the universe. She watched from the orbital station as massive human shuttlecraft descended to the surface of the SciFiPrime, like gentle giants coming to rescue children from a burning building. Each vessel was larger than the biggest Coalition transport ships, yet they moved through the atmosphere with impossible grace and precision. Director Haeyun Seo of the Human Colonial Administration had arrived on the second day to coordinate the civilian aspects of the evacuation. She was a calm woman with kind eyes who spoke about relocating 2.3 billion people as if it were a routine task that humans handled regularly. Her staff worked with quiet efficiency that made the desperate chaos of the past weeks seem like a bad dream that was finally ending. Ambassador Velthani, we have prepared temporary housing on 17 different worlds within 50 light-years of your system, Director Seo explained, while showing Kira holographic displays of beautiful planets with cities already under construction. Each world can comfortably support between 100 and 200 million of your people while permanent colonies are established. The images were breathtaking. Worlds with blue skies and green landscapes where Villani families could build new lives without fear. Cities rising from empty plains in a matter of hours as human construction equipment reshaped entire continents to provide homes for refugees. Technology that treated the fundamental forces of physics like clay to be molded according to need. Dr. Sunwoo Nam led the Terran Emergency Response Corps, and his teams were working miracles on the surface of the dying world. Medical stations appeared overnight that could treat radiation sickness with techniques that seemed to reverse cellular damage at the molecular level. Food production facilities materialized from nothing and began generating nutritious meals for millions of hungry refugees. Captain Lee Sol-won commanded the atmospheric processors that were already working on 3 different star systems to prepare backup worlds for Villani colonization. Her ships could take a barren rock and transform it into a garden world in a matter of weeks. Watching the process through long-range sensors was like watching gods at work reshaping creation itself to serve the needs of refugees. The human evacuation process was unlike anything in Coalition experience. Instead of cramped emergency transport with minimal life support, the human ARC ships provided passengers with comfortable accommodations that exceeded the living standards most Volani had enjoyed on their homeworld. Families were kept together and cultural artifacts were carefully preserved and transported along with the people. Engineer Hyokju Bai demonstrated matter-energy conversion technology that created entire cities from raw asteroids in the time. It would normally take Coalition engineers to survey a construction site. His teams would select an asteroid, and within hours it would be transformed into a complete urban center with homes, schools, hospitals, and recreational facilities all ready for immediate occupation. Kira accompanied a group of Volani refugees on one of the human ARC ships to see the conditions for herself. What she found defied every assumption about emergency evacuation procedures. The ship's interior was spacious and beautiful, with parks and gardens and recreational areas that made the journey feel more like a vacation cruise than a desperate flight from a dying world. The refugees she spoke with were amazed by their treatment. Families who had spent weeks in overcrowded camps with minimal food and medical care now found themselves in comfortable quarters with abundant resources and human staff who seemed genuinely concerned about their well-being. Children were playing in safe, clean environments while adults began learning about their new worlds from human cultural liaisons. "How do your people have such resources?" Kira asked Captain Park during one of their daily briefings. "The Coalition represents dozens of advanced civilizations, yet we could not mount a rescue operation even a tiny fraction of this scale." Captain Park considered the question carefully before responding. "Ambassador, your Coalition has done remarkable things within the limitations of your current technology and resource base. We have simply had more time to develop and expand. Humanity has been traveling between star systems for a very long time." The implications of her words were staggering. Humanity had been spacefaring for millennia, while the Coalition was still struggling with the basics of interstellar travel. The humans had built an infrastructure that spanned regions of space the Coalition had not even explored. They had resources and capabilities that treated galactic-scale problems as minor administrative tasks. Word of the human intervention spread throughout Coalition space faster than the speed of light as news traveled through their communication networks. The response was a mixture of amazement, gratitude, and growing concern about the implications of such advanced technology in the hands of unknown aliens. Commander Talos Brightscale of the Zephyrite Defense Fleet sent increasingly urgent messages to Coalition headquarters as his people monitored the human evacuation operations. His reports painted a picture of beings who operated technology that seemed to ignore the fundamental laws of physics that governed Coalition science. "They are moving entire populations between star systems as easily as we might transport cargo between orbital stations," Talos reported in one of his communications. "Their ships appear to manipulate gravity itself to create stable transport corridors through hyperspace. We are witnessing capabilities that our scientists deemed theoretically impossible." The Nautilin Deep Fleet was equally concerned about the implications. Admiral Reef Walker sent bioships to observe the human operations from a safe distance, and his crews reported technology that seemed to manipulate matter at the subatomic level. Human construction equipment could apparently rearrange the atomic structure of raw materials to create complex machinery and buildings. General Kiros of the Nautilin military sent a classified report to the Coalition Council that summarized the growing concern among member species. "The human rescue operation demonstrates technological capabilities that exceed our understanding by several orders of magnitude. They have completed in 3 weeks what we estimated would require centuries of coordinated effort by all Coalition members working together." The rescued Volani settlements became showcases of human engineering and planning. Worlds that had been barren rocks weeks earlier now supported thriving cities with clean air and water-abundant food and energy systems. That seemed to draw power directly from the quantum fluctuations of empty space. The new colonies were not just functional, but beautiful with architecture that blended Volani cultural preferences with human engineering excellence. Ambassador Yunbi O, arrived at Coalition headquarters to formally introduce humanity to the galactic community. She was accompanied by a small diplomatic staff and a single escort vessel that politely requested permission to dock at the Coalition's most secure facility. The casual way her ship's presence caused detectable gravitational fluctuations throughout the star system was not lost on Coalition observers. "We have been aware of your Coalition for some time," Ambassador O explained to the assembled representatives of member species. "We have watched your development with interest and respect. We chose not to make contact until circumstances required our intervention to save lives." The Coalition Council listened in stunned silence as Ambassador O described humanity's expansion beyond the edge of the galaxy into regions of space that Coalition science considered empty and unreachable. Humans had apparently been building an interstellar civilization, while the Coalition was still debating whether faster-than-light travel was theoretically possible. Director of Colonial Development Jong-Ho Yu presented holographic displays showing the new Volani settlements and the integration programs that were helping refugees adapt to their new lives. The images showed happy families in beautiful cities where advanced technology provided abundance and security that exceeded anything most Coalition citizens had ever experienced. "We hope to establish friendly relations with your Coalition," Ambassador O concluded. "Humanity believes in the value of diversity and independence among intelligent species. We have no desire to interfere with your internal affairs or expand into your territory. We simply want to be good neighbors in this galaxy we all share." The presentation ended with an offer of limited technology exchange and cultural cooperation programs. Nothing that would threaten Coalition independence, but enough to demonstrate that humanity's advanced capabilities came with peaceful intentions and respect for other civilizations. As the rescued Volani began transmitting messages of gratitude and wonder from their new homes, the rest of the galaxy struggled to understand what the appearance of humanity meant for the future. A species with godlike technology had revealed themselves through an act of pure altruism that saved 2.3 billion lives without asking for anything in return. The universe had suddenly become a much larger and more mysterious place where beings existed with powers that could reshape reality itself, yet chose to use those powers to help strangers in desperate need. The Coalition Council chambers had never seen such tension as representatives from every major species gathered to discuss the implications of humanity's intervention at the SciFiPrime. Counselor Prime Nexus of the Hive Collective stood at the center of the great circular hall, with her compound eyes reflecting the emergency lighting that cast harsh shadows across the assembled delegates. Her insectoid features were rigid with barely controlled fear. "We must address the elephant in the room," she announced in the clicking, harmonious voice that all Hive members shared. "An unknown species with technology centuries beyond our own has appeared in our space. They saved the Volani, but what are their true intentions? What do they want from us?" Commander Talos Brightscale's crystal body resonated with harmonics of deep concern as he presented his analysis to the Council. His people had been monitoring human activity since the evacuation began, and the data they collected painted a picture that challenged everything the Coalition thought they knew about the limits of technology and physics. "The human vessels demonstrate mastery over fundamental forces that we barely understand," Talos reported while holographic displays showed recorded footage of human ships in action. "They manipulate gravity as easily as we manipulate electromagnetic fields. Their construction equipment appears to convert energy directly into complex matter arrangements. Their faster-than-light travel operates on principles our best scientists cannot even theorize about." Admiral Reefwalker of the Nautilus Deep Fleet added his own troubling observations about human capabilities. His bioships had been observing. From the edge of human operational areas, and the readings they collected suggested technology that operated on scales the Coalition had never imagined possible. "My sensor crews report energy signatures from human facilities that exceed the output of entire star systems," Admiral Reefwalker said through the water-filled communication sphere that allowed him to participate in air-breathing meetings. "They are not just advanced beyond our current capabilities. They appear to operate on entirely different principles of science and engineering." The fear in the chamber was almost physical as representatives realized the implications of what they were hearing. The Coalition had always assumed they represented the peak of technological achievement in their region of the galaxy. Now they discovered they were like children playing with simple tools while adults worked with forces beyond imagination. Minister Velkorax of the Zephyrite sovereignty raised concerns about humanity's true military potential. If humans could casually deploy the resources needed to evacuate 2.3 billion people in 3 weeks, what could they accomplish if they decided the coalition posed a threat to their interests? We must consider the possibility that this rescue operation was a demonstration of power disguised as humanitarian aid, Minister Velkorax suggested. They may be showing us their capabilities as a warning about what would happen if we opposed them. The debate was interrupted when the coalition's long-range sensors detected an incoming vessel approaching their headquarters station. The gravitational signatures matched those of human ships, but this one was larger than anything they had seen before. The massive vessel appeared at the edge of the system and began approaching at speeds that should have been impossible for something of its apparent size. Marshal Dongyun Park appeared on the main communications screen and requested permission to dock for formal diplomatic discussions. His presence aboard what was clearly a military vessel sent waves of panic through the council chambers. Behind him, other human officers were visible, including Admiral Sora Lim, whose casual demeanor somehow made her seem more threatening than if she had been openly hostile. Honorable Council members, I bring greetings from the Terran Federation and proposals for establishing formal diplomatic relations between our civilizations. Marshal Park announced with perfect courtesy that failed to hide the underlying implications of his massive warship's presence. The human vessel requested docking clearance at Coalition headquarters, which presented an immediate dilemma. Refusing would be an insult that might provoke these powerful beings, but allowing such an advanced warship to dock at their most secure facility felt like inviting conquest. In the end, they had little choice but to grant permission, while secretly activating every defensive system they possessed. Marshal Park's ship docked with mechanical precision that demonstrated perfect understanding of Coalition technology and procedures. The docking process itself revealed disturbing details about human capabilities, as their vessel's systems interfaced seamlessly with Coalition equipment, despite being built on completely different technological principles. The human diplomatic party that came aboard the station consisted of only a dozen individuals, but their casual confidence spoke volumes about their assessment of Coalition military capabilities. They walked through corridors lined with the Coalition's most advanced security systems, as if they were visiting a museum rather than a potential enemy's stronghold. Admiral Sora Lim's presence was particularly unsettling to Coalition military observers. She carried herself with the relaxed posture of someone who knew exactly how dangerous she was and exactly how little threat her surroundings posed. Her ship's casual demonstration of defensive capabilities had effortlessly deflected sensor scans from Coalition defense platforms that spanned several star systems. Dr. Researcher Prime Vexara led a team of Coalition scientists in analyzing technology samples that the humans had left behind during their evacuation operations. The results were terrifying in their implications. Human technology operated on principles that suggested complete mastery over fundamental forces of reality itself. The material samples show atomic structures that should be impossible under known physics, Dr. Vexara reported to an emergency session of the Coalition Science Council. They appear to have technology that can manipulate matter at the quantum level to create materials with properties that violate several established laws of thermodynamics. Energy readings from human facilities showed power generation methods that seemed to draw unlimited energy from sources the Coalition could not identify. Construction equipment that could reshape planetary surfaces in hours rather than decades. Transportation systems that moved between star systems as easily as ground vehicles traveled between cities. The Coalition's most advanced computer systems attempted to model human technology and consistently returned error messages indicating the calculations required processing power beyond their capacity. Human engineering appeared to operate in mathematical spaces that Coalition science had not yet discovered. President Minsu Yang of the Terran Federation addressed the Coalition Council via quantum communication link that demonstrated yet another aspect of human technological superiority. The clarity and immediacy of the transmission made Coalition communication networks seem primitive by comparison. Honorable representatives of the Galactic Coalition, we come in peace and friendship, President Yang announced with sincere warmth that somehow made his words more frightening rather than reassuring. We have been aware of your civilization for some time and have watched your progress with interest and respect." The implication hung in the air like a sword suspended over the assembled delegates. Humanity had been watching. They had observed coalition activities and development for an unknown period while remaining completely undetected. The galaxy's most advanced surveillance networks had never detected so much as a hint of human presence. "We chose to respect your independence and allow your civilizations to develop naturally without interference," President Yang continued. "The crisis at the SciFiPrime presented the first situation where humanitarian concerns required us to reveal ourselves." The message was clear though diplomatically phrased. Humanity had possessed the power to intervene in coalition affairs for an unknown length of time, but had chosen not to do so. They had watched entire wars and crises unfold without interfering because they respected other species' right to determine their own destinies. "We hope to establish peaceful relations with your coalition based on mutual respect and cooperation," President Yang concluded. "We have no territorial ambitions in your space and no desire to interfere with your internal governance. We simply wish to be good neighbors in the galaxy we all share." The formal presentation ended with an offer of limited cultural and scientific exchange programs. Nothing that would threaten coalition independence or security, but enough to demonstrate that humanity's incredible capabilities came with peaceful intentions toward their galactic neighbors. As the human delegation prepared to depart coalition headquarters, the representatives of member species were left to contemplate a new reality that challenged every assumption about their place in the universe. They had discovered they were not alone, and they were definitely not the most advanced civilization in the galaxy. The beings who had casually saved 2.3 billion lives in 3 weeks possessed technology that could reshape star systems, and apparently, the wisdom to use such power responsibly. The galaxy had fundamentally changed, and everyone was struggling to understand what that meant for the future. 6 months after the rescue at the SciFiPrime, the galaxy had settled into an uneasy new normal that nobody quite understood yet. The coalition species found themselves living in a universe that was suddenly much larger and more complex than they had ever imagined. Every day brought new reports about human activities that challenged basic assumptions about what was possible in the realm of science and engineering. Supreme Commander Veltanos of the Zephyrite Sovereignty stood in his command center studying. Holographic displays that showed human settlements scattered across regions of space his people had considered empty and unreachable. The scale of human civilization was staggering beyond anything coalition planners had ever contemplated. What they had thought was the edge of inhabited space turned out to be just the beginning of humanity's vast interstellar domain. "They have been building out there for millennia while we struggled with the basic concepts of faster-than-light travel," he said to his strategic planning staff. "We are not dealing with a recently spacefaring species. We are dealing with a galactic superpower that chose to remain hidden until circumstances forced them to reveal themselves." The human embassy on Concordia Station had become the most closely watched diplomatic facility in coalition space. General Chaewon Kim served as the primary human representative, and her mere presence fundamentally altered the balance of galactic politics. Behind her polite diplomatic manner lay technology that could reshape solar systems and military capabilities that made coalition defense forces seem like children playing with toy weapons. The embassy building itself was a demonstration of human engineering that operated on principles coalition scientists still could not understand. The structure appeared to be built from materials that were stronger than any known alloys, yet somehow remained perfectly transparent to allow natural light to flow through every room. Energy systems powered the entire complex without any visible connections to external power sources. Queen Mind Zarathus of the Hive Collective had attempted to organize a military alliance among coalition species to address what she called the human threat. Her efforts met with failure, as other species proved too frightened of humanity's demonstrated capabilities to risk open confrontation with beings who had saved 2.3 billion lives as a casual display of their resources. They could have conquered the entire galaxy centuries ago if that was their intention, pointed out Minister Kyloves of the Centaurian Republic during one of the failed alliance meetings. Instead, they chose to remain hidden and allow us to develop independently. That suggests peaceful intentions backed by overwhelming power. The rescued Villani had become living advertisements for human capabilities and intentions. Their new settlements were marvels of engineering and city planning that provided living standards beyond anything most coalition citizens had ever experienced. The worlds that had been barren rocks just months earlier now supported thriving civilizations with clean energy, abundant food, and transportation systems that seemed to operate on principles of applied magic. Elder Keth Velmari had become an unofficial spokesman for his people and frequently addressed coalition audiences about their experiences with humanity. His speeches always drew enormous crowds, as beings throughout the galaxy struggled to understand what the emergence of humanity meant for their future. They did not just save our lives, Elder Velmari explained to a packed auditorium on the neutral world of Harmony Station. They gave us homes that were better than what we had lost. They asked for nothing in return except the opportunity to help beings in desperate need. They treated us not as refugees to be warehoused, but as valued, neighbors deserving of dignity and respect. The integration programs that helped Villani refugees adapt to their new lives demonstrated human understanding of psychology and social dynamics that rivaled their technological achievements. Families were kept together during the evacuation process. Cultural artifacts and traditions were preserved and supported in the new settlements. Children attended schools that blended Villani educational methods with access to knowledge resources that seemed to contain the accumulated wisdom of multiple galactic civilizations. Coalition scientists continued their desperate efforts to understand human technology, but made little progress beyond confirming that human science operated on principles their current knowledge could not explain. Dr. Researcher Prime Vexara led a joint task force that analyzed every scrap of data they could gather about human capabilities. We are like primitive hunters trying to understand nuclear physics by examining the footprints of nuclear engineers, Dr. Vexara reported to the Coalition Science Council. Their technology is so far advanced beyond ours that we lack the basics, conceptual framework needed to comprehend what we are observing. Energy readings from human facilities suggested power generation methods that drew from sources coalition physics claimed were theoretical impossibilities. Construction equipment that manipulated matter at the subatomic level to create complex structures in hours rather than years. Transportation networks that treated the distance between star systems as minor inconveniences to be overcome with casual ease. Ambassador Yonghwan Lee had established regular diplomatic contact with coalition leadership, and his discussions revealed glimpses of the vast scope of human civilization. Humanity apparently maintained colonies and facilities in multiple galaxies, while the coalition still struggled with basic interstellar colonization within their local region of space. We understand that our sudden appearance has been unsettling for your people, Ambassador Lee acknowledged during a formal address to the Coalition Council. We want to assure you that humanity has no territorial ambitions within Coalition space and no desire to interfere with your internal governance systems. The offer of continued independence came with the unstated understanding that such independence existed only because humanity chose to respect it, rather than because Coalition military forces could defend it. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted so dramatically that traditional concepts of national sovereignty and military deterrence no longer applied. We believe diversity among intelligent species is valuable and should be preserved, Ambassador Lee continued. We have watched your coalition develop over many years, and we respect what you have accomplished within the limitations of your current technology and resources. The careful phrasing reminded everyone that humanity had been observing coalition activities for an unknown length of time while remaining completely undetected. The galaxy's most advanced surveillance networks and intelligence services had never suspected the existence of a civilization that apparently treated interstellar travel like suburban commuting. President Min-Soo Yang had established a regular communication schedule with coalition leadership to address ongoing concerns about humanity's intentions and capabilities. His messages always struck the same careful balance between reassurance and subtle reminders about the reality of human power in the galaxy. We know that learning about our existence has been challenging for your people, President Yang acknowledged in his latest transmission. We want to work with you to build a relationship based on mutual respect and cooperation. We are not conquerors or colonizers. We are simply neighbors who want to help when help is needed. The subtext was clear to everyone who heard it. Humanity possessed technology that could have conquered the galaxy, but chose instead to use that power to save lives and preserve the independence of weaker civilizations. The most terrifying aspect of human power was not their weapons or their vast resources, but their moral restraint in using such capabilities. The new Villani settlements continued to serve as showcases of what was possible when human technology was applied to creating ideal living conditions for intelligent beings, cities that were perfectly integrated with their natural environments, energy systems that provided unlimited clean power without environmental impact, transportation networks that moved people and goods with perfect efficiency while preserving the beauty of the worlds they served. As the galaxy adjusted to the new reality of human presence, the most disturbing question remained unspoken but was on everyone's mind. If humanity had developed such incredible capabilities, what threats existed in the larger universe that had required them to become so powerful in the first place? What dangers lurked beyond the edge of known space that had motivated beings to master forces that could reshape reality itself? The rescue at the SciFiPrime had revealed that the galaxy was not the safe, isolated neighborhood the Coalition had always assumed it to be. Somewhere out in the vast darkness between the stars, there were powers and forces that required preparation on a scale the Coalition could barely imagine. Humanity had become what they needed to become to face such challenges, and now they offered protection to younger civilizations still learning to walk among the stars. The universe had revealed itself to be far stranger and more dangerous than anyone had suspected, but it had also shown that there were beings powerful enough and wise enough to stand guard against whatever threats might come from the infinite darkness of deep space.